I wanted to ask you, Alvaro, about the Bee Gees and the disco. Was there anything else during the 70s that could have influenced or inspired you during your work at IF? I'm thinking of something like the Apollo and Soyuz docking.
Well, indeed, for people of your generation, it's difficult to appreciate the kind of change that happened in the 70s. We came, as it has been said, from an era of first man in the moon, first astronaut, first satellite, not only for the Soviet Union and for the United States, for many other countries, to an era, the decade of the 70s, in which we appreciate the value of cooperation, and we understood that the space is for everybody, and the best way to explore space is to go together. And that's why we were fortunate to see the Apollo Soyuz program, as we were fortunate to notice the birth of the European Space Agency, also in the 70s. So again, many European countries, they got along together. The cooperation between Europe and the United States with the Space Lab, and by making a new, we heard the word docking before, indeed it was a time in which we appreciate that docking was essential to make all this cooperation. And finally, last but not least, it was an era which also we learned something special, is that we were trying to reach the stars, and we have a star nearby called the Sun that we had very little idea, to say no idea at all how it worked. So it was in the 70s when we start to appreciate the effects of the Sun in our own system, in our own atmosphere, and we start to study, to make the programs to learn the interaction between the Sun and Earth, that today they are so essential for all these climatic change events and all this paraphernalia. So indeed, the 70s, they were an important decade. And personally, to finalize, I got married and I got children, so it was important.
Thank you. And you, Bob, we had a wonderful movie about the first man in space, and I was wondering what it meant to you to be an astronaut or a cosmonaut in your childhood.
Well, you know, during the 60s and 70s, I was in grade school. Apollo 13, Jim Lovell and his crew of Apollo 13 were my heroes. The astronauts and the cosmonauts from the Salyut 6 space station and Skylab, I knew their histories back and forward. I could quote all their stats in the same way that another Canadian could quote hockey player stats. And the Apollo Soyuz test project, those guys are my heroes as well. Leonov, you know, he's a veteran. So these people had the effect of taking my vision as a grade school person and elevating it to new possibilities. You know, space exploration, it causes young people to think about what else we can possibly do, to think about what's at the end of that river, what's on the top of that mountain, what's on that next planetary body. And those people are my heroes, and you know, I think we today have an obligation to do the same with the next generation. If we get benefit professionally, personally from the space program, we have an obligation to inspire the next generation. Those are my best days after flying in space. Those are my best days when some university student comes up to me and says, you know, you don't know me, but you spoke at our school 10 years ago, and because of what you said, I decided to finish high school, or I decided to go to medical school. Those are my best days.
Alvaro, I think you have a point of view concerning the access to space, and I was wondering if you can tell us whether do you think space belongs to everyone, or whether we belong to space?
Well, no, what I say is that if I may rephrase your question, is whether we will ever go to space and to stay. And I used to say that we have two problems. One is a minor problem, it's called gravity, very minor problem. So we don't know how to get up there, but okay, we will solve the technicalities of being over gravity. But we have a second problem, which is a major problem in my opinion, which is legal and political hurdles. And they are very important legal and political barriers today to really have access to space for everyone, for everybody, for the benefit of all mankind. But I'm sure that in the next few years we are going to solve all these problems.
Bob, we often talk about spin-off in terms of technical aspects. How would you use your experience in space to involve people in international cooperation?
Well, you know, I think that there's a lot of the public, including the politicians, who support our program that are probably unaware of all the benefits that we get from spaceflight today. So communications, broadcast communication, search and rescue, remote sensing, robotic systems. These are things that we can tell the public about, you know, inform them, put out pamphlets, put out web pages. I don't think that's enough. I think we have an obligation, or we should have a strategy to engage people as well. If you don't engage people, for example, I can't remember if I told you, but aboard the International Space Station, we had to work out for 2 hours every day to stop the heart from atrophying, to stop the bones from demineralizing, to stop the muscles from wasting away. And that works pretty good. It prepares us for return. And we tell the public about that. But why don't we engage the people on the ground as well? One of the big social issues in Canada is that our population is losing fitness. They're getting overweight and obese, and it's going to be a healthcare crisis. Hypertension, diabetes in the years to come. If we can somehow engage the people in a nationwide fitness program based upon what we have to do in space anyways, that's how we're going to, those would be the best spin-offs.
Very good, and I mean that sounds like a very, very good idea to involve people and to I mean there was plenty of things that people could do with the astronaut, and I think we need to try to develop a lot on communication to tell the common people everywhere what we are doing in space, what you are doing in space, and try to make sure they understand the interest of going in space. I think the Federation is doing good for that.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of drama, human drama involved in spaceflight as well. You know, during a 6-month mission in space, there are things that go wrong. And somehow, working with our team on the ground and our colleagues on orbit, we have to solve those problems. And those are interesting stories to tell. You know, things don't always go right, but what is really interesting is how we go about solving the problems with our people on the ground. Teamwork is a really good message to get out, and drama is a good message to get out.
Okay, good. So I think that was a good thing for the 70s to have you here to talk about it, and before we involve all the people to do fitness with us, maybe we can involve them to have a cheers
To the 70s.
Yes, for the 70s.